The Birkenhead Drill by James DeMille. 'Twas a revelling crowd in the tavern one night, some there for a frolic and some for a fight. The shouting and laughter rose loudly and bold, and a sergeant of guards came in from the cold. On a stool by himself the old sergeant sat. From a hook on the wall hung his old campaign hat. 2 glasses, he said in a soldierly tone, one up with whiskey and one upside down. He hoisted the whiskey and breathed a deep sigh. Lantern light gleamed from a tear in his eye. He drained the glass neatly and then softly said, "Stand fast, my lads, sail on, Birkenhead." The din in the room almost smothered the words, but the ear of the barkeep was sharp, and he heard. "Begging your pardon," to the sergeant he said, My own soldier lad was aboard Birkenhead." A long searching look passed between the 2 men. No sound could intrude on their moment, and then a call to the barmaid, 2 glasses to fill, and forth came a toast to the Birkenhead Drill. The barkeep commanded the tumult to cease. "Ladies and gents, your ears if you please. Here's a man with a story that's dear to my heart, of my own lost boy at sea, just a spot on the chart." The clamour died down and was soon less than a whisper. Roistering patrons fell silent to listen. The sergeant stood tall, though his sorrow was plain, and through the veil of tears was at sea once again. In low measured tones he put them on deck, aboard a doomed troopship a-coming to wreck. His voice was a spell, the tavern lay still, as he told them the tale of the Birkenhead Drill. The old Birkenhead was a stout iron ship, appointed by fate to make her last trip. It was in the first month of 1852, and rebellion in Africa was starting to brew. A troopship she was, and the finest afloat, with a draft of recruits as we sailed from Cork. Boys raw as the breeze on their first voyage to sea, over 600 souls in the ship's company. Along with the men were some families too, women and children among the soldiers and crew, Africa bound for new lands and new lives. Brave hearts indeed were these sea-going wives. Our Major Seaton had a big job to do. The lads were untrained and undisciplined too. Seaton knew well what the men would be needing, for he would be taking command in the field. The troops were all under Seaton's command, I, one of the 74th Highlanders' own. The field of drill was a deck made of wood, and the Kaffir war was awaiting their blood. So it was drill, boys, and double, as the ship sailed on, through foul weather and fair as we made for Cape Town. In the long weeks at sea, these boys became men, transformed by the Major into a disciplined band. Yes, lassies and laddies, these boys became men, but what I now know, I couldn't know then. The Major brought forth in each man his best, and soon would they all meet fate's greatest test. The evening of February 25th day, we departed Cape Town for Algoa Bay. The night was a fine one, starlight and no moon. There wasn't a wind and the water was smooth. When the mid-watch sang out 6 bells and all's well, is when HMS Birkenhead sailed into hell. We were off Danger Point when the ship came to grief. She tore out her heart on an uncharted reef. She lay stricken while the men fought to keep her afloat. The wreckage on deck had smashed of her boats. Many a man had already died when the last of the boats was swung over the side. Those left alive now prepared for the worst. When the order came down, women and children first. The salvation might come to those who could swim, but the boats had room for just children and women. The soldiers were mustered in ranks on the deck, holding their posts in the midst of the wreck. With ship breaking up, their peril was clear, and standing there too was the old soldier, Fear. Shoulder to shoulder we stood to the end. I shook hands one last time with many a friend. In the dark I could see the fear in men's eyes. We had so little time to say our goodbyes. The ship's captain gave leave for the men to break ranks, every man for himself before the ship sank. But Seaton saw in a moment that hope was now gone, and the boats would be swamped if the men crowded on. As bold as you please, he gave a command. There's one more drill, men, together we'll stand. Soldiers of Britain, will you hold to the last? Stand fast, my lads, ye soldiers, stand fast. Not a single man moved, the men were all true, cast into the sea as the ship broke in two. 'Tis the end of the tale, for the great ship went down, and 455 brave men were drowned. To the barkeep he said, Sir, your son is a goner, but he stands in the ranks at the roll call of honour. So I turn one glass over and one glass I fill, and drink to me mates and the Birkenhead Drill. He up with the whiskey and breathed a deep sigh. Lantern light gleamed from a tear in his eye. He drained the glass neatly, then softly said, Stand fast, my lads, sail on, Birkenhead.